down in motion. Thompson Robinson surveying. Delivers. Intercepted by USC. Corey Foreman. And the Trojans pick off Dorian Thompson.
Okay, now I've said the last couple weeks have been like the most hectic in college football that I have seen in a while, but this week was absolutely shocking. The amount of games that were close, the top 4 played awful. Teams that you never thought could win won. Upsets everywhere, and just a complete collapse from almost every ranked team. This was an amazing week, and I cannot wait to break it down with you guys. But first, before I show you guys my top 25 for this week, I'm going to show you my top 25 for last week so you can see where I moved all the teams and I give my reasoning and all that. Okay guys, so this is my previous top 25. I'm just going to let you guys look at it real quick, take it in, right before I show my rankings for this week, just so it adds a little bit of context, who lost, who won, and where I ended up putting people, and then I'll get into why I put them where I put them. And now I'm going to show you guys my top 25. Here it is. Definitely a lot of shakeup in the back end and the front end. There's a little bit. I want to talk about why I put a certain team higher than others. But to start off the video, we got to talk about Georgia and Kentucky. Now, like I said in the intro, a lot of the top 4 teams didn't play that well, and Georgia is one of them. They won their game against Kentucky 16-6. Their defense played well, but honestly, they couldn't stop Kentucky. Kentucky was more or less stopping themselves. They were driving up and down the field, but they could not convert and they could not score. Georgia only putting up 16 points against this team that just lost to Vanderbilt 21-17. is alarming. They played really bad. They were able to run the ball, but Stetson Bennett did not look that well. He was having a rough time. They didn't even let him throw the ball after he threw like an interception. They just ran the ball every single down. And that's just kind of sad. They don't trust him that much. And as much as I believe Georgia is the #1 team in the country, they are beatable. There is not an unbeatable team in the country this year. All it really takes is them to have a game like this against a way more competent team, and they will lose. But in my opinion, I really doubt that would happen, because Kirby Smart would have their guys playing the best that they can play, especially if they're playing Ohio State, Michigan, any top 5 or top 10 team. They would just be ready to go and actually show. But Georgia just plays down to their opponents so much, especially when they see like how inferior that team is. They probably saw Kentucky lose to Vanderbilt last week and be like, oh, well, they lost to Vanderbilt, so we're about to destroy them without even trying. And then they almost like coughed up this game. So yeah, no team is safe. And then we're going to get on to the next game, which is Ohio State and Maryland. Ohio State, I still have at #2. They won against Maryland 43-30. This game was kind of sloppy. And when I say sloppy, I'm talking about the Ohio State defense and a little bit on the offensive side as well. Maryland is not a good defensive team, and I understand that they're playing out of their mind because they're playing Ohio State right before Michigan. They know that they're going to look past them and look to the Michigan game, and they put it on them, and they really did. They had a chance to win this game, and at the end, it just came out with the talent. Like, Ohio State's talent is just way higher than Maryland's. They made the right plays. They got down the field and they scored, and then they were able to pin Maryland deep and sink them on an interception that was returned for a touchdown at the end. But I do want to congratulate Talia Tagovailoa. He played so well in this game. He outplayed CJ Stroud, which is the Heisman frontrunner right now. Mike Locksley, Maryland's coach, he had the perfect game plan, and they executed it, and they played so well. Ohio State's secondary really had no idea how to cover these guys. They were playing soft. They weren't even trying. They weren't even physical. And I'm going to say one thing. If they're not going to play physical against Michigan, they're going to lose. So this cannot happen again, or Ohio State's just in major trouble. And speaking of Michigan, I have them sitting at the 3rd spot. They hosted Illinois, and they almost lost this game. They probably should have lost this game. But nonetheless, they pulled it out. They won 19-17. And I'm going to just say something. Illinois' defense is insane. They are so good. Michigan is the best second half team in the country. Now, I know they didn't have Blake Corum. He got injured late in the second quarter, and then he didn't play for the rest of the game. I think he got a couple more snaps. But regardless, they held Michigan under 20 points at home in this game. And I was telling all my friends earlier, if this game was neutral site or at Illinois, Illinois would have won this game. And it might have been by more than a score. But I want to give credit to JJ McCarthy. He made the right plays. He got Michigan down to where they needed to be, and they kicked a field goal to win this game. But one thing I do want to say about Michigan, if they do not get Blake Corum back, or he's going to try to play against Ohio State, but if he is not like 100% or even 50%, they're going to lose. If they can't run the ball and bleed time and the clock, they're going to lose to Ohio State. I really don't care how bad Ohio State plays. If Michigan does not have Blake Corum, they are going to lose this game, scoring 19 points. Actually, let's take away Corum at all. They scored, 12 points without him. They are not holding Ohio State under 20 points. It's just not going to happen, especially at home. So they have to come to play. And I do believe Michigan's going to come with a really good game plan, as well as Ohio State, and it's going to be an amazing game. I really do believe it's going to be like a 1, 2, or 3 point game win for either team. And I'm just so excited for that game next week. But moving on to another amazing game, I have TCU at 4. They play Baylor at Baylor, and they won off a game-winning field goal, 29-28. One of the most entertaining games I watched all day today, and I was literally chewing my nail, thinking, what is about to happen? They ran the ball with 15 seconds left, and I'm like, they're crazy. And the offense ran off the field. The field goal unit came out, and they kicked the game-winning field goal. He hit it right down the middle and kept TCU's season alive. I really don't know. They're 11-0. They're probably going to beat Iowa State, and then I think they're going to play Kansas State in the Big 12 title game. Now, that game, I honestly believe that Kansas State might win that game and upset them, but I want to save that discussion for the end of this video. I'm going to come up with a couple scenarios where I think teams are going to end up in the playoff at the end of the season. But I'm at the video. At number 5, I have USC. USC just beat UCLA at the Rose Bowl, 48-45. And I think everyone in the country that even watches football knew that this game was going to be a shootout. And well, everyone was right. No defense was played in this game, but the thing about defense at the end of this game is when the defense kind of ramped up. UCLA was able to stop Caleb Williams and USC. They punted it, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson was taking them down the field. He threw the interception to seal the deal for USC, and now they are a couple wins away from the college football playoff. And that's the thing with USC. They play really bad defense, but they always cause turnovers, especially in high intensity moments like interceptions to completely change the game or to just win the game outright. And that's what separates them. And another thing that separates them is Caleb Williams. Him and his targets, having Jordan Addison, Mario Williams, and just all the weapons that he has is ludicrous. And I know everyone's talking about the Pac-12 being really good this year, but if you're really looking at it, a lot of the games that USC has looked like really good in, obviously they're not playing the best competition. UCLA just lost to Arizona. And I'm not saying UCLA is a bad team. I'm just saying they don't play defense. And a lot of teams in the Pac-12 don't play defense. So I don't know if Caleb Williams is really the Heisman frontrunner. I'm going to still edge it out with CJ Stroud just because he plays in a harder conference and a conference that plays more defense, and he's played against better defenses and just looked better. And I feel like if you put Caleb Williams in the Big Ten and play him against like Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, and those teams, I do not think he would have half the stats that he does. So for that reason, I'm going to literally put him right behind CJ Stroud in the Heisman race. And moving on from USC, I have LSU at 6. Now, I moved USC above LSU. I had USC sitting at some spot because they went into UCLA, ranked team, and they won that game. LSU looked very shaky against Arkansas, and then they beat UAB, which we all know is a meh team and whatever, but LSU still controls their own destiny. They will be in the playoff if they win out. And then sitting right after them, I have Alabama at the 7th spot. They played Austin Peay, only won 34-0 in this game. I wasn't really pleased with the offense. The defense looked good, but it's against Austin Peay. The offense just didn't play that well. I know that they got Bryce Young out of there early, and it was Jalen Milroe majority of the time, but still, you got to put up more points than 34 on Austin Peay at home. You just have to. And then moving on to a team I'm not high on at all that actually could make the college football playoff now is Clemson. And they just beat Miami 40-10. Miami has been a train wreck this year. They've fallen off. They lose pretty much every week, or every week's a close game. And we were all looking at this game at the start of the season like this is going to be a really good team. Miami is going to give Clemson a run of their money. They're going to beat Clemson. They're going to take the crown. And no, that did not happen at all. Van Dyke hasn't looked good. And honestly, the entire Miami team hasn't looked that good, but I hope Mario Cristobal knows what he's doing, and I know he's recruiting very well, but they have to be better than what they're doing right now because it is just atrocious. Then moving on, at my number 9 spot, I do have the Oregon Ducks, and now a lot of people are going to roast me about this, but I do have them above Penn State, and hear me out, the only reason I have Oregon above Penn State is because they just beat a ranked Utah team that I had in the top 10, or the 11th spot. I think I had them at the 11th spot, and a team I have a lot of respect for. Now they only won by 3, but they still perform well. Bo Nix played alright. He was 25 for 37. He had 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And Cam Rising, he had 3 interceptions, which is probably the reason they lost this game. They're pretty close in yardage. But then again, Oregon also fumbled and lost it twice. So the turnover battle, honestly, was only won by Oregon. But regardless, they got a ranked home win, and I do value that. Penn State played very well, but they didn't play a really good team. And I'm going to get into that in a second. Up next, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions. They are rounding out my top 10, and they have just looked so good. Ever since they lost to Ohio State, which is a game they played really good in, they've looked amazing. They won today 55-14, and they are just shredding everyone that they play. This is a really good team, and I'm very high on Penn State. That defense is for real. I know they didn't look that good, especially against Michigan and then Ohio State, but against everyone else, they are obliterating everybody, and they really do deserve to be in the top 10. And finally, the game that I've been waiting to talk about, Tennessee and South Carolina. Oh my lord, is Tennessee overrated? I made a video a couple weeks ago saying Tennessee is overrated, and this is the reason why. You guys can watch that video. I'm going to link it in the description. Tennessee is overrated. They really are. They don't play defense. They are really bad in the secondary. To the point, Spencer Rattler, which had 8 touchdowns this whole season and 9 interceptions, threw 6 touchdowns on them, over 400 yards, and completely dismantled that entire defense. Ripped them apart. And to cap that all off, Tennessee couldn't even keep up with them. Now, I know it was a night game at South Carolina, but how everyone was talking like Tennessee is like still the 2nd best team in the country. They're still the 3rd best team in the country, even after losing to Georgia. South Carolina just put up 36 more points on Tennessee than Georgia did. And I really wanted to move Tennessee down more, but I couldn't move them below Washington because I do really think that they would beat Washington and every team like below them. But it's just music to my ears. I've been hearing like all week, I've been seeing on social media like all these Tennessee fans like hoping Baylor wins. They're buying like Baylor merch or something like that, UCLA merch, so they could get into the playoff. And they're not even worrying about their own team. And not only did Baylor lose, and not only did UCLA lose, they lost. So they are no more in contention. They'll get into a good New Year's 6 game if they could beat Vanderbilt. And I'm just glad I'm not going to see them patrolling around on Twitter acting like they're better than everybody else when they're letting up 63 points to South Carolina. And then sitting right behind Tennessee, like I said, is Washington. They won their game against Colorado 54-7. Not really much to talk about. They're a solid team. I'm going to sit them there. And the only reason I'm putting them above Kansas State is because they have 1 less loss against Kansas State. And then Kansas State, obviously sitting right behind them as the best 3-loss team. They won their game too against West Virginia 48-31. They looked impressive, and they're probably going to be playing TCU in the Big 12 title game. And like I was saying earlier, I think Kansas State is going to upset TCU, and I believe it's going to be insane. And then moving all the way up to the 14th spot, I have the Fighting Irish in Notre Dame. They won 44-0 against Boston College. Shut them out, look good on offense. Not really much to talk about. They're in the top 15. Congratulations to them after their losses to Marshall, Ohio State, and Stanford. They're looking really good. And so right behind them, I have Florida State. Florida State won their game against Louisiana 49-17. The Seminoles are looking so impressive. They also have 3 losses. But similar to Notre Dame, they're picking up their stride. They're playing very well, and they're kind of interchangeable. I could have made an argument to put Florida State above them, but that win against Clemson that Notre Dame has, I'm definitely carrying that over anything that Florida State has done, even though Florida State did beat LSU by 1 point. Notre Dame completely dismantled and destroyed Clemson, so I think they deserve that spot. And after Florida State, we got Utah. Utah just lost their 3rd game. We were just talking about it a little bit earlier. They could have won. They had a chance to win this game, but they lost. And I'm sitting them right at the 16th spot, right behind Notre Dame and Florida State. And honestly, those teams I kind of feel are interchangeable because Utah has some quality wins. They do have some meh losses, but At the end of the day, Notre Dame and Florida State are winning. Utah just lost, so I'm going to sit them behind those two. Moving on, after them, I have Cincinnati. Cincinnati, they won their game 23-3 against Temple. Now, I know a lot of people aren't high on Cincinnati. I'm not really high on them either, but I do believe that they're a competent team, and they would play everybody to like their standard. And I kind of think they deserve to be what they are. Not really, but looking at the other teams, I want to put Cincinnati there. I really do, but they're the outlier. If anyone has a problem with it, I completely understand. But sitting right behind them, I have Tulane. Tulane went out a couple days ago and won 59-24 against SMU, which to me is just impressive. I moved them back up to I think where I had them before when they lost to UCF, and just by the way, UCF dropped them out of my rankings. They lost to Navy at home 17-14, so we're not going to see them breaching the top 25 again. And then we have North Carolina. North Carolina, Drake May has been an amazing quarterback, and he is definitely in the Heisman race, but after today, I don't think anyone can keep him up there, and I do not think he's going to win the Heisman next year. He might be the front runner next year, but definitely not this year. You cannot lose to Georgia Tech at home. Georgia Tech is a train wreck of a team, and only putting up 17 points against them is just abysmal. We all know that UNC has a really good offense and they could score a lot of points, and scoring 17 against an inferior Georgia Tech team is just inexcusable. He is definitely out of my Heisman race, and I don't think he's gonna be sent to the ceremony, especially after this performance. And then right behind them, I have UCLA. UCLA rounding out my top 20. There's not really much to say. They lost 2 games in a row, lost to Arizona, and they lost to USC. I moved them at the 20th spot. I do think they're better than the next teams I'm about to talk about, which is why I have them in the spot that they're at. Maybe they deserve to be dropped a little bit further, but I'm going to keep him at the 20th spot. After them, I have Ole Miss sitting at 21. They got obliterated by Arkansas. And really not a good Arkansas team at all. This Arkansas team does not have a good defense, and their offense is very lackluster. And Ole Miss, they were losing this game 42-3? Like, what? 42-3, and then Arkansas, they kind of pinned their ears back, and then Ole Miss scored a couple garbage time touchdowns and all that. The real score of this game was basically 42-6, and that is just wild. And I wanted to really drop them to like 24 or something, but again, I think that they are better than the next teams we're about to talk about, which is why I have them sitting there. They are the worst 3-loss team I have in there, though. Also, I want to mention something. A theory on why they played so bad is I believe Lane Kiffin is about to ditch them for the Auburn job, and I think it's in everybody's minds right now, so it's kind of taken off the game and all that. But I do think Ole Miss is overrated. I've thought they were overrated the entire season, but couple that with the Lane Kiffin going the Auburn thing, yeah, it was just a recipe for the disaster, and they played their hearts out against Alabama the week before and lost, so this is like a letdown. So it's kind of 3 things hitting them at once. But moving on, up next I have Coastal Carolina. They were supposed to play Virginia, but as we know, Virginia, they had to postpone the game, or no, it was canceled because they lost those 3 players. Rest in peace to those guys. It's an awful thing that happens, and it's very classy for all the college teams that put like the Virginia logo or the Virginia State like at the back of their helmets and stuff like that. It's really great to see everyone come together and support them, because this is a really tough time. I don't know if Virginia is going to play next week either, but my condolences to all the families and the players, the coaches that knew those guys, and it's just a really messed up situation. But yeah, Coastal Carolina is sitting at 22. And then moving on, we have Oregon State. I have them sitting at the 23 spot. They went to Arizona State and they won that game 31-7. Not really much to talk about it. I think the Beavers are a really good team, to be honest, and I definitely think they're underrated. I did want to put them higher, but it was 3 losses. I just think kind of set them back a little bit. I do think they're a solid team though. And then coming in right behind them, I actually have UTSA. UTSA only has 2 losses this year, and they haven't lost since week 3, so I definitely think they deserve some love after how well they've been playing. Even though they haven't been blowing everybody out until recently, I definitely want to show them some love. So congratulations to 24th spot, UTSA. Also, I want to mention they put a beat down on Rice today, 41-7. And then rounding out my top 25, I have South Carolina. I did not want to put South Carolina in my top 25, but they thoroughly destroyed Tennessee to the point where I had no choice. They're 7-4, and they're the only 4-loss team I have in my top 25, and I could not leave them out after they just made Tennessee look like an FCS team, basically. Tennessee was my 5th ranked team in the country, and probably everyone else's 5th ranked team in the country, or 4, and they just got annihilated. So I have to show love to Spencer Rattler and South Carolina. So they're going to sit the 25th spot regardless what anyone says. That's where they're going to stay for me. They play Clemson next week. If they lose, they'll be out. If they win against Clemson, oh my lord, I don't know where I'm going to put them, but that's going to be a very interesting game, and that's definitely a game I'm going to watch. But yeah, that's been my top 25, guys. Hopefully you agree with me. Let me know in the comment section if you do agree. One thing I do want to talk about before I end this video, I know it's been getting really long, is the college football playoff outlook. And honestly, I believe that Georgia's going to win out. They're going to beat LSU, and then I believe Ohio State's going to win. So they're going to be at the 2nd spot. Now, what happens if TCU loses and USC? What do you do after that? I think you would have to put Clemson in as a 3 or 4, and you might have to put Michigan or Ohio State, regardless who wins, at that 3 or 4 spot. I'm not gonna lie, but probably at the 4th spot. So either Ohio State and Michigan would end up playing Georgia, and then either Ohio State and Michigan would be playing Clemson. But I only believe that that's going to happen if USC and TCU both lose, because if TCU loses, that they're out. If USC loses, they're out. I know people can make an argument for Oregon, but I don't think Oregon's better than Ohio State or Michigan. So I really think the committee would put a 1-loss Ohio State or 1-loss Michigan in over Oregon that got destroyed by Georgia, and then also lost by 3 points to Washington at home. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about the rankings and my college football playoff outlook all in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.